You ever wonder how many private seven-figure deals take place that we don't know about, or how guys with deep pockets, buyers with deep pockets, find sellers with some of the greatest sports card grails in the world? Well, you're going to find out on today's video. We bring in one of the biggest card brokers in the entire world and a friend of mine, Jesse Craig with Acquire, and we're going to explore that sort of behind the scenes card broker lifestyle of bringing some of the world's biggest hobby buyers and the world's biggest hobby sellers together to get deals done for some of the great grails in our hobby. Are you tired of selling your cards on eBay, creating the listing, taking the pictures, front, back, shipping, non-paying bidders? Let the pros at Fanatics Marketplace do all of the work for you. I do. That's why I use Fanatics for my vaulting and for my selling. If you've got a bunch of unwanted inventory that you've been sitting on for days, weeks, months, years, ship it to Fanatics Marketplace and let them do all the work. Just make sure when you ship it, you use the promotional code Cajun, all capital letters, CAJUN, and tell them that Cajun Cardboard sent you, and let the pros do the rest at Fanatics Marketplace. Hey guys, Brian with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana, and I am excited to bring on to the channel today not only a really important figure in the hobby, but also a really good friend of mine, Jesse Craig with Acquire. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm coming from the great state of Oregon, so it's actually 98 here today, which is crazy hot for us this time of year. I don't know how it is down there, but it's warm.
Hot. It's 98, but it feels like 198. I did get a chance to go to Oregon. You know, I got to go out and visit PWCC in the fall, formerly PWCC, Jesse, formerly PWCC.
So weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It's still weird.
End of an era.
Yeah, Fanatics Collect is really hard to say. It's a lot harder to say. And the weather was incredible when I went out there in the fall, and I was so jealous because they had like hills. I think is what you guys call them, hills and trees. We don't have anything like that down here, Jesse. We have Bourbon Street, and then everything else is flat and swamps.
Yeah, it's gorgeous out here, honestly. Luckily, we live about 30 minutes south of Portland. Don't have to deal with the riffraff of the big city. Live in a little small country town, about 15 minutes from wine country. So we have a lot of access to beautiful views and beautiful vineyards and places to go. We're an hour and a half from the coast. You know, you can go an hour and a half to Mount Hood to go snowboarding in the winter. So there's a lot to do out here. It's great.
When I flew in, the lady next to me said, "That's Mount Hood." And she made me look out the window, and I was like, that doesn't look real. It looks like Lord of the Rings or something, you know? I'm like, this is not, we don't have this stuff, right? We, you know, don't take that for granted. We don't have the stuff that you've got up there.
That's right.
I describe you as a high-end sports card problem solver. Is that fair? Like, is that what Acquire does? Like you bring buyers and sellers together, but you do more than that. Tell me, generally speaking, what it is that Acquire does and what they can provide for somebody in the hobby.
Yeah, so I have a pretty long history in the space. Started out working for a dealer for 4 or 5 years, learned a lot about the card market, cards, obviously collected as a kid, like most guys, you know. Unfortunately, none of that stuff's worth anything that I had as a kid, like most of us. But went from there. I got into real estate for 4 years, and then I was an equity holder at PWCC. I got an offer to leave real estate, come back into cards, so I did that end of 18, early 19, and I was there for 5 years until we were acquired by Fanatics, and you know tried to stick it out for a few months. But just going from a 180-person company to 18,000 employees, it's a big shift, and I felt like I couldn't really wield my influence as much on the business. Fanatics didn't know me very well, and so it was hard to relay the love and passion and understanding I have for the space with a really big company. And so decided to part ways a few months after the acquisition and started Acquire with my partner Brock Hayden. So we've been doing this for about 9 months now, and we really we take all of our experience from PWCC from before, have a lot of access to big buyers, a lot of access to where cards are hidden. So yeah, we are we're a broker, really, is what we do. We know where stuff's located, and if someone's looking for something, we can typically find it. It's just a matter of getting it for the right price and getting a deal done. But that is really our bread and butter. Our bread and butter is finding hard cards to find, and finding sellers that are ready and willing to sell.
It's cool because, and I'm terrible, Jesse. I am so bad at bringing guests on the channel. I'm used to hitting record and I start screaming. And so I'm going to try to get a little bit more organized, and I can do this. Watch this. I can share screens.
Look at that.
I'm going to share.
Come a long
yes.
way.
Yes. Even in Louisiana, we have access to the internet. So this is your acquire page on Instagram, and it's acquire without the E on the end. Not that anybody in Louisiana could spell acquire with the E or without the E, but it's ACQUIR.co. No M on the end either. So you're missing an E and you're missing an M.
Yeah, we make it challenging just to find our website. Apparently,
it's impossible, but I found it somehow. I tracked it down. So this is Jesse and Brock's website for acquire. Jesse and Brock also have Instagram pages personally. Brock's Cards, and I think it's Jesse Craig Cards as well. And you even have the fancy, Twitter thing up here or whatever it's called, the Instagram verification. So
I'm nobody special. I paid for that thing. I had somebody jack my account one time and make a fake account, and so I figured I'd pay the money so it's really me.
Yeah, good call. I need to get around to
anybody special.
They asked me about that. I need to ask you about that. Like, I got a thing saying you should do this, and I didn't do it because I had to pay like $10 a month.
It just validates your account. I had somebody that did make a fake account. I don't know why they care about me, but they made a fake account, and so I figured this could help combat that a little bit.
Probably best. I need to look into it for sure. So now I'm on there's actually an acquire website, and it is acquire.co.
Yep.
And I don't see any small cards, Jesse. I don't see any Beam Team PSA 8 Dominique Wilkins or anything like that. So you guys deal in elite cards. I mean, every card has a story and every card's special. I don't see any slouches on your channel. For the people that are watching and listening, like, give us an idea of when it is that you come into play. When does acquire kind of come into the picture? What is that kind of dollar threshold where it might merit a phone call to acquire if they're looking for a particular card?
Sure. So we deal in what we call high end, and everyone's definition of high end can be different, right? We look at it as 10K plus. Okay. We've brokered cards from 10,000 all the way up to in the millions. But that is the gist of the website, is we're not going to list cards on there that are under 10K. And so that's why you see some bigger stuff on there. We just launched this website last week. We had a few clients that have put stuff up there, but we haven't added a ton of stuff to it yet. But there's a good little selection on there and some fun cards.
Yeah, some impressive stuff, man. A lot of this is like Grail territory for a lot of people. I don't see very many at 10,000. I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm looking at it, I see a lot of 100,000.
There's a few
I see a lot of 100,000, and I see a million right here, but I don't see a lot of 10,000s. Yeah. When you left Fanatics, you maintained a really good relationship with a lot of guys over there, because a lot of people did stay after the transition, and I know you went this way. A couple other people went their separate directions. Do you still have a good relationship with some of the folks that are over there at Fanatics Collect post-transition?
100%. We love them, honestly. Look, I hired a lot of the guys that are still over there. A lot of them are like family. Some of my closest friends are still over there. Some of the best working days of my life were in the peak of the market at PWCC, when things were cranking. Everybody's having a good old time, right? Like, that was so fun. So we had an absolute blast together. And then, Fanatics coming in, they're trying to do big things, and I really believe in what they're trying to do. There's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way, but they really care. They're very, very invested, as we all know. So it'd be stupid of them to not do the right thing and to not really build this business around the collector, which I think some people have a fear of, but I'm very confident that they'll figure it out. And Fanatics Collect, PWCC, whatever you want to call it, we're one of their top sellers there. So we still sell a lot of assets on that platform. I believe in their buyer pool. I believe in their software, their vault specifically. I mean, I helped design and build the vault, and a lot of things online that you see, I've been a part of a lot of that. So, I might be a little biased, but I still really believe in it. And I still think they do a great job. And I still think they're, one of the better places to sell your stuff.
Give me a great old school PWCC story. Give me a story about, Jesse, give me a story about 2021 when all hell was breaking loose and cards were, 20xing in like 3 months. Yeah. Give me a story about a famous card or a famous person. Give me something.
A cool story, and this is just to go to show how much money was floating around, is after the National in 2021, we were having Malka pack up all our stuff, Malcolm Mitt. It's an armed service company that transfers high-end assets, and they're packing up all their stuff. And we did the total value, and it was over $100 million coming back from the National to the vault.
What?
And now we did bring some of that with us, right? There was about 30 million in cards that were clients that we brought to the show so they could display, and then we took them back. But we brought in over 70 million of new assets, whether it was for auction or for vaulting from the show. And so that was a pretty cool story. And then I would say the biggest celebrity I've been able to meet through this, sorry if anybody's watching this, it's a celebrity I met that's like a B-lister, but was
you're about to get trumped right here.
I know.
It's not Trump, is it? But you're about to get
Trump. It's not
okay.
Trump. It was Post Malone.
Yeah.
So we had Post. He's a big Magic the Gathering guy. Everybody knows that. So we had one of our customer service people. They called me and they're like, "You're not going to believe who I just talked to." And I'm like, "Okay, Zach, who are you talking?" He's like, "It was Post Malone." I was like, "Are you sure?" He goes, "Dude, trust me, it's Post." I'm like, "All right, give me his contact information." So he sends it to me and I shoot him a text. And I just said, "Hey, this is Jesse from PWCC. Just talked to somebody on my team." And he immediately starts texting me back and forth. He's like, "What are you doing, man?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm actually just celebrating my wife's birthday today." He's like, "No way. It's my girlfriend's birthday today. We're on the jet right now, but we'll pop a bottle." He was the nicest guy ever. That's and then leading up to the National, I shot him a text and said, "Hey, do you want to come to the show? I can get you in before hours so you don't get swarmed, yada, yada." And he asked if there was going to be very much Magic the Gathering on the floor. And I said, probably not. I'll be honest with you. Probably not at a sports card convention. And he's like, that was the year that he was headlining Lollapalooza in Chicago, the same time as the National. Yeah. And so he's like, "Why don't you come and hang out backstage before I go on?" So he let us, me and 5 other guys from the company, we went there and we hung out with him for an hour and a half before he got on stage and hung out a little after. And he's the most down-to-earth guy I've ever met. That's, A+ A-lister, right?
Yeah, big time.
An incredible dude, incredible guy. Can't speak highly enough of him.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good stuff about him. You know,
he was great.
That's awesome. That's big time. Tell me about the biggest cards. People like stories. People like headlines. I'm not this, click chaser guy, but I mean, I got the big dog on here. One of the biggest brokers in the world. Give me some cards. What's the biggest card since you've transitioned to acquire? I know 2. I have 2 off the top of my head that I know you guys brokered, but I'm gonna let you tell me what's the biggest card that y'all have brokered, brought buyer and seller together since you've been at Acquire.
Well, the interesting thing is there's a lot of deals that we do that we can't discuss.
Yeah.
So if buyer and seller are willing to disclose information, we will. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. They want to remain anonymous, keep the price private, whatever it may be, for a litany of reasons. We did sell a card for over $2 million. I can't disclose even what it is, but that was our biggest sale in the last 9 months since we started Acquire. Couple other low 7-figure cards, high 6-figure cards. But before that, it was, we did the 52 mantle. I brokered that one to Rob Go. That was very public.
Yep.
In January of 2021 for $5.2 million. Did the Mahomes Shield for 4.3. One of our sales guys did a gold LeBron RPA at the peak for 5.2. So yeah, Kobe Green for $2 million. So there's been quite a few big sales. I had a $7 million offer on a Clemente PSA 10 turned down. That was during kind of the peak of the market. So there's been a lot of fun ones. And, I think it's going to become more commonplace here in the future for 7-figure card deals. I feel like cards are really getting in strong hands, guys that don't want to sell, that don't need to sell, right? A lot of we'll call them fakers, but like guys that were using leverage. And I don't mean that as in a negative term. It's just, they don't have great wealth, so they have to use leverage a little bit. And when you have that, it's harder to keep things long-term. And if markets shift, you have to liquidate because you don't have the wealth behind you to sustain the time frame, right? So a lot of those guys are out of the market now. And the guys that have these cards are getting placed in really strong hands, guys that don't need to move it, that won't move it. I mean, I can't tell you. That's my biggest
great for value. It's great for value long term. You don't want to see the cards pop up, Jesse, every other month.
That's what happened with the Brady Champ tickets. They turned over way too many times. The perception of supply is much higher than actual supply is. Yeah. And so the more pent up demand you can have for a card, obviously, the more buyers stack up, the more they're going to go after that card when it hits the market. So it's sometimes hard on business for us because that's what we do. It's hard to get someone to sell something, but it's also a good sign for the strength of the market and long-term longevity for the space.
Yeah. Um, tell me, how does somebody get in touch? Is the best way to get in touch with you just message you on Instagram? I mean, you're not hard to find. You're a broker, so you want
Yeah.
people to reach out to you
Yeah.
if they're in the high-end card market. Let me share this because this is really cool. I love how you guys do this. Let me get you back on screen share. So every once in a while, I'll see you guys post something like this on Instagram, and this is fantastic, and it's just eye candy for me. You got a list of cards that you're looking for interested buyer clients of Acquire.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got a list of cards that are available from interested seller clients of Acquire. So you're that conduit, you're that glue that brings buyer and seller together, and you help people sell and you help people buy. That's the definition of a broker per se. And there's just some absolute banger cards on this list. You talked a second ago about not being able to disclose, and these cards were transferred in a private transaction. And I know that happens. You know that happens. What percentage, if you had to guess, I guess what I want you to do is kind of express to the people out there how many deals for like 7-figure cards are actually not on the radar. They're not on eBay. They're not done on Fanatics Collect. They're not done on Golden Heritage, Mile High, Robert Edwards, whatever. How many deals are done in a private setting from buyer to seller, either through a broker or directly, maybe at a show or maybe just through messaging and Instagram and stuff like that? Is it a growing number, do you think? Are more deals like that happening in private now than maybe say in 2022? I feel like there are.
Yeah, it's a lot more than people think, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. I think part of it depends on where you're at in the market. If the market's really, really hot and there's new people coming into the space, then it might be more advantageous to auction it because
Yeah.
you have buyers that you're not aware of. But when it's things are kind of still or just increasing, it makes a lot more sense to go private for people because you get a guaranteed number. You know, as a seller, you're like, hey, 100 grand is my number on this card, and I'm not going to budge off it. Well, if you let that rip at auction, you run the risk of it. You have no control, right? You've lost
Yep.
control once it goes to the market. So you can control the pricing of the card much better from a private perspective. And what we're learning now too is for these buyers, they're willing to pay more by not having that card actually hit the market. So they actually like it if it's off market deal. Nobody knows about it. They acquire this card and now it's in their collection. Now they control the ask price moving forward. So a lot of buyers like it too. Now they don't have to compete for it. Maybe they think they're getting a good deal privately. Maybe they would have paid 125 at auction for that card, but they can get it for 100. So every scenario is a little bit different, right? But I think that generally there's a lot more private deals that go on behind the scenes, and the private market is a lot stronger than people who aren't like engulfed in it every day like we are would really think that it is.
Yeah. I shared a little bit on my channel. I was lucky enough. You invited me to y'all's event at the National downtown Cleveland, which was awesome. I thought I was going to get raped and mugged, and then when I walked in, I was like, "Damn, this place is badass!"
Yeah,
Like somebody put some work into the architecture. It was beautiful, man. It was a fantastic event. It was well hosted by you and Brock, and it was. I tried to explain to people when I walked into the room, it was a who's who in the hobby, and I didn't belong there. What do you, without disclosing the identities of any of the people in there, right, that don't want to be identified, I can't even imagine the net worth of the gentlemen that were in that room on that night. And look, every single one of them, to a man, was an absolute class act. I mean, as open, as passionate as you and I are when it comes to talking about cards. As forthright with information and kind of just chatting about it. A lot of them recognize me, and I obviously recognize a lot of them, and mostly recognize their cards and their Instagram pages. But it was an unbelievable event just to be around folks like that, and just to be a fly on the wall and sort of pick their brain and ask some questions and meet some of those guys. So I appreciate you you letting me tag along to that. And my son got a chance to sit in the room.
Yeah.
He was not impressed at all because he's 23 years old. He doesn't care about anything that we care about. But it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. We had a great time. It was great seeing everybody, and we love putting on events like that, getting everybody in the room. We feel like it strengthens the market and the hobby. And the beauty of running our own show now is we get to decide who we work with. Yeah. So we only work with people that we enjoy working with. There are people we won't work with. There's been some bad actors in the past, and when we were at PWCC, whether it was non-payers or whatever it was. And we know, I know who a lot of those people are because I've been through it. So we get to decide who we work with, good people. And yeah, it was kind of a who's who room. We were very flattered. A lot of them showed up. And we had some really cool cards on display too. So that was fun. We had the bartender there. Everybody was getting a little loose, having a good time. So it was a fun event.
You guys stayed a lot later than I did. So
Well,
I'm from South Louisiana. I should have been the one to shut it down, but I had some other guys from South Louisiana, I think, that stayed late with you, late
yeah,
or early, depending on how what your perspective
it
is.
was a late night for sure,
It was
but
a late
it
night.
was a good
It was a
time.
late night.
It was a good time.
All right, so we know Fanatics Collect is here, and then the brand has transitioned out with the PWCC, in with the Fanatics Collect, and just generally speaking, in with Fanatics as a major player in the hobby. You've got a different perspective than most, and a little more nuanced and experienced perspective than most. Give me something that you're concerned about with Fanatics, and then give me something that you're very optimistic about with Fanatics and the way that they're going to imprint their brand on the hobbies. A pro and a con, or a concern and then something you're optimistic about.
Yeah, I would say the pro is the potential of them bringing in new money, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're appealing to the sports fan. I mean, you think about the National, and we had, what was it, 100,000, 150,000 people that came through over the whole weekend. I don't know. I didn't see a final tally, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah. And I heard it broke the record for the National. So assuming that's true, that's awesome. But 150,000 people, that's basically 1.5 football games in an NFL stadium for people that are there. So the potential of fans to get involved, which is the whole point of Fanatics, Fest in 2 weeks, is to get fans involved and get them into the card side. And I love the prospect of them doing that and building a better base for the collecting community. Now, look, I know there's some OG collectors out there that hate it because it drives up the price of cards. I get it. I totally understand. It's great for me. It's great for our business, right? Like, the more expensive stuff is, the more money we make. So, full transparency, it's great for us, but I completely understand, some old school collectors' gripes about new people coming in the space because they might get priced out of stuff. I get it. So It's a little bit of a give and take. But things evolve, things grow, and you kind of got to get with the times, I think, and nothing ever stays the same, right?
Yeah.
A concern of mine on that same path would be those guys coming into the space. Like, let's just say there's a very wealthy individual that comes into the space, and them someone getting their hands on them that doesn't have the best intentions, that gives them bad advice, that doesn't lead them in the right direction, that is short-term thinking, not long-term thinking, right? So, I mean, look, me, and transparency, honesty, being straightforward, that's what we built this company on, my brand on, right? I would much rather not get a deal done with somebody than have them gripe about it 6 months down the road. That's not how we do things. I always think long-term. And so I want to give people good advice and educate them, and don't just throw a card at them to sell them a card. Like, figure out what the hell they like, figure out what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, right? What they want to do in 5 years, right? Certain cards make sense to buy now if you're going to hold and overpay for, right? Overpay right now. Sure. If you're going to hold for 5+ years, you might not be able to see it again. In a year and a half, it might be 50% more, right? So if you get it now and you can hold on to it, then you're in a good position. But there's also cards that it doesn't make sense to buy, or cards that if you're going to buy it, like, you got to be positioned from a timing perspective to sell it if it's more modern or more this or more that. So there's so many nuances, and there's so many little niches within the space. I mean, you guys have found a massive community in the 90s Jordan, 10 market, right? Yep. And that's just one little niche in our space. Happens to be a pretty good niche. But that's so every situation is different. Every client should be looked at differently, or every investor, collector. And I get concerned about them bringing those guys in, and someone who gives them bad advice, they buy a few things, they get screwed over, and they're out, right? We want those guys in long term.
Yeah, we saw it, Jesse. We saw it in 2020-ish, approximately 2021. And then the people that you really feel sorry for, are the folks that came in. Well, you don't feel too sorry because they had deep pockets, but the folks that came in the second, third, fourth quarter of 2021 and then poured everything into that. Yeah. Because from that point until very recently, everything nosedived, or at least the high-end stuff nosedived, the vast majority of it. And so you wonder if those big spenders in late 2021, 2022, if they can even recover. It was such a nosedive and such a catastrophic fall from the peak that you wonder if they can take that punch and then keep punching, or do they just say, you know what, I'm out. This was a miserable experience. And they never get the chance to become a collector, because they were coming in for the money. I mean, a lot of people come in for the money, but I think a little bit bigger percentage of those people stick around and become collectors than most collectors give credit.
Totally
right?
agree. I totally
And
agree.
so
It's look, it's an addicting space. Once you get your, your paws into it and you start going, like you become addicted and kind of engulfed in it.
sure.
So yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of guys that came in, unfortunately, they bought, when everything was really high. And if they have the wealth to maintain those assets, I've talked to many guys like
Ride it out.
what you
You say
just
ride it out.
described, and they're
Yeah.
just going to ride it out.
Yeah.
And maybe if a few years down the road, if the market hasn't totally recovered and they need to take a little bit of a loss for whatever reason, maybe they'll sell then, or
Yeah.
maybe they're just going to wait and give it to their kids if they're, wealthy
Yeah.
enough. And so, everyone's situation is different. But yeah, a lot of guys that bought, mid to late 2021, obviously bought at the peak, very hard to recover from that. But I will tell you, I've gone to those guys trying to broker those cards. Some of them just say, I refuse to take a loss. I'm just going to hang on to it. I don't need to sell. And so there's those cards are stuck in strong hands.
Most wealthy people don't like to lose, Jesse. I've noticed that.
They
They don't like to lose, or at least they don't like to admit they lost. And so
Yeah.
one way not to lose is you never sell it until it
right.
is a penny higher than what you bought it for.
Is that the trick? You just don't ever sell it and you can't
That's
lose?
it. Yeah, I've never been down on a card. I've never lost money on a Jordan card ever. I've never sold one. That's kind of that's the theory behind it. All right, I'm giving you $250,000. Here's $250,000, Jesse. This is a basketball card channel primarily. I'm giving you $250,000 to start a basketball card fund. Who are you buying?
Oh man,
5-year hold, Jesse. 5-year hold.
5-year hold. So if we're talking ROI, there's a couple players I look at. Like, look, obviously Jordan's big for your channel and your brand. But Jordan's stuff has been really hot. And so from an ROI perspective,
yes.
If you're a collector, you buy what you can and you move on. But if you're looking at pure ROI,
you're investment, Jesse.
I look at guys like Kobe and LeBron.
I agree.
I think their markets are down so much. It doesn't look, LeBron is a bit of a complicated brand, right? Like there's guys that absolutely love him and they're diehards. There's guys that can't stand him because of political beliefs and whatnot. And that's going to affect the collectability. I know a few high-end guys that won't touch LeBron because they're so Republican and he leans a little more liberal and Democrat. And anyway, so I think that affects some of the ultimate value that's going to be dropped on LeBron. But even with that said, his stuff for how good, I mean, look, in my opinion, he's the second greatest basketball player of all time. Agreed. If you look at everything, he is the second greatest basketball player of all time behind MJ.
Agreed.
And his stuff being a fraction of what it is for Jordan doesn't make logical sense to me. I think there's so many incredible, exquisite cards of his and such incredible rookie cards of his. I mean, look, his stuff's expensive. Don't get me wrong in the grand scheme of things. But then there's also Kobe. Like Kobe passed away, and we're never going to have more signed Kobe stuff. We're never going to, Kobe is an absolute legend. There's more diehard Kobe fans that will die, protecting his brand. Than almost even Jordan. I mean, they're so diehard. It's kind of wild.
There's Kobe GOAT people out there, Jesse. There's people out there that think Kobe's the GOAT.
And I'm a Laker fan. Like I love Kobe. He's my second favorite player of all time behind Magic Johnson. That's my favorite player ever. But trying to look at the grand scheme of things, is Kobe really the GOAT? No, I don't think Kobe's the GOAT. He has my favorite demeanor on the court. Right? Like I love the intensity.
I love it.
He's a psychopath and I love it. Right? Like absolutely love it.
Absolutely.
So I respect it, the work ethic and that's part of the reason why I like LeBron is, I've got a buddy that played on his team in 2016 when they won the championship. I've heard firsthand the work ethic that guy instills in the entire team, how you feel like a piece of shit, basically, if you're not working just as hard as he is. Right. So there is so much to respect with LeBron outside of, if you try to push aside the political stuff, there's a lot to respect about him and to appreciate from LeBron. But those two guys are guys I would focus on. And you could go a ton of different routes with which card to ask you. I mean, LeBron, I'm looking at his exquisite rookies. Like that is such an important brand for our market. Carvin, when he designed that with Upper Deck, if people saw the PSA magazine that came out with the article talking about it, it's an incredible read. You should check it out. But it was so revolutionary at the time. $500 a box, like that was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So to be able to come out with a product like that back then happens to be like one of the greatest draft classes of all time. And then Exquisite made this high-end run from 2003 to 2009, 7 years of it. I just think that 03 LeBron Exquisite, I mean, you can't go wrong. The hard part is getting them these days.
Yeah. Tell me about your collection.
My collection is very thin now. So starting a new business, I haven't wanted to pull money out of the business. So I've actually been slowly selling off what's left of my collection. I'm down to probably only about, I don't know, 50 to 100 grand left of cards. I've got a pretty modest collection at this point, and I'm just slowly selling stuff off to not have to pull money out of the business. And some of the stuff, look, I bought at the peak. I'm going to lose money on it.
I
Right?
lost. Yeah, hell, I was buying like hell in 2021, man.
Yeah, I was too. And so, looking at that, trying to, talking with my tax guys and figuring out when's a good time to sell, if I need more losses, whatever it may be. And
Sure.
so my collection's pretty modest. I have no more LeBron. I had LeBron. I have no more LeBron. I've got some Mike Trout. I've got some Magic Johnson, a few other random, like a Griffey, Pacific Northwest guy. So I've got a pretty cool Griffey card. But like I said, it's not that big. One piece I do have non-card related that I actually think is incredible is I have Larry Bird's official score sheet from his 60-point game when he was with the Celtics signed. That because that's Tatum has now tied it. Yeah. But it's a Celtics record. So it's the official score sheet from that game, the only one that exists. And so that's the only piece of memorabilia outside of what we have here in the office that's hung up. But that's the only piece of memorabilia I own in my collection personally that I think is pretty cool and unique.
Now, I'm trying to remember the story, and I'm getting old, so I'm forgetting more than I remember. But I swear I remember, didn't Mikhail score like 58 or 59 like the week before? And Bird, I think Bird said, I'm breaking that record next week. He broke the record next week.
Yep, that's exactly
just add to the list of the crazy stuff that Bird has said and done. That dude was an animal.
Absolutely.
And I just wish we had more years of Bird, and we wish we had more years of healthy Magic and a healthy Bird. Bird was laying on his back or on his stomach on the sidelines for like his last 3-4 years. And, he should never have poured the gravel to make the driveway for his mom that summer. And it was after that, he tried to do his mom's driveway himself. I'm like, man, you're a millionaire. Pay somebody to do the driveway. And we lost Larry Bird after that. But tell me this. I guess a lot of people are going to wonder, and I'm curious, how do you get paid? Like, how does it work? How do people know what is your price? What is your cost?
Yeah.
There's no price sheet. And I know you guys are on the high end, so it may, vary on a case-by-case basis, but kind of talk us through how you, put a number on your worth for a particular transaction.
It's honestly pretty simple. So we just don't charge more than 10%. So we will not, on a private deal, we will not charge someone more than 10%. We will eat into that and make less if we have to get a deal done. But, what people don't realize about the private market is you probably land one out of every 15 or 20 deals you're working on. There's a lot of missed shots, right? So you bat a low percentage. So when you get a deal done, that's how you're compensated, right? You found a card for someone looking for it. You got a good number for a seller they're happy with or that they needed. And you get compensated for bringing those two guys together anonymously, right?
Yeah.
We don't make more than 10%. I mean, I'll give you an example. I won't say the card, but this is a true story from about 2 months ago. We had a card that a seller told us he wanted $200K for his net. And I sent it to a guy that I knew was looking for it. Before I could even tell him the price on it, he said, I'll pay $300.
That's aggressive and nice.
Right. But we don't do that. So I won't we ended up settling at $250 and $275 all in. So we made our 10%. The guy saved $25K. We got our seller an extra $50. Everybody was happy, right? It was kind of in the middle. Yeah. So everybody was really happy, but we could have made 100 there.
Yeah.
And we didn't. And so
usually buyer and seller's identities. Buyer doesn't know who seller is. Seller doesn't know who buyer is. And it's your job to represent both. And you have that, confidentiality and the fidelity to buyer and to seller to keep that neutral, just get a deal done.
And there's a lot of reasons that people want to stay anonymous, right? We have, maybe there's a celebrity, maybe it's just a well-known name. Maybe it's a financial guy where he doesn't want people knowing his name.
Sure.
Maybe it's somebody in our space that's prominent that just doesn't want someone to latch onto something they're buying, right? So anonymity for us is huge. And we actually, for certain specific clients, we will actually bid for them anonymously through our own account. So we'll buy an asset at auction for them. We do all the work and we just charge a 2.5% fee on top of that. But we'll stay up, we'll do the auction, but then they get to remain anonymous. So so people just go, oh, acquire bought the card. They don't know who it's ultimately going to. Yep. And so anonymity across the board, I think when you're talking about high-end stuff and big dollars, I think is important, keeping information private, keeping our buyers, our sellers private. And the only time we release information about a sale is when it's already been approved by both parties.
Yeah.
So anonymity is a big piece of what we do.
So you brokered this card. Tell me a little bit about that. I know you I don't want to talk about who and where and all that
I couldn't
stuff.
tell you
I know
anyway.
the how much is not a. I know, but the how much is not a secret. Obviously, because it's on your Instagram page.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, when they saw this, including me, I reached out to you and I was like, "What? I was not expecting that number." I mean, I know it's a huge card. I was not expecting that number. And then there's been a couple of offers, I guess, to certain individuals to purchase 2 of the other copies of this card since then that may or may not have been turned down. We'll learn more about that on the Cajun Cardboard channel in the next couple of weeks. I think I'm going to have that gentleman on as well. Yep. But this is a very hot card right now. And I think the 86 Fleer is the true rookie card. And I think a lot of people think that the Star is the rookie card. Yeah. It just depends on what your criteria is and what are the prerequisites for a rookie card. But there is no denying this is a serious, serious piece right here. So tell me a little bit about this or what you can share. Share what you can. How about that?
Yeah.
Is that easy?
Yeah. We had targeted a PSA 9. This specific example was actually a Pop 1 about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, right? So a couple more have been graded by the gentleman that you're referencing.
Yeah, the luckiest gentleman in the world, I think. Is what he likes to be called.
Exactly. And he's a good, really good dude. He was at our party
dude.
Too.
He's coming on.
Yeah. And so I knew he had 2. So my first stop was to go to him and try to get one. He's not going. I won't sell under $1 million. I won't sell under $1 million. I won't sell under $1 million. So I go to where I know because I knew where all 3 copies were. So I went to the guy that had the other one, and same thing. I won't sell under $1 million. Won't sell under $1 million. And I love the guy to death. He's a good friend in the space, and I beat him up, and I beat him up, and I beat him up, and he beat me up, and we went back and forth. I mean, it's like 2 months in the making. Yeah. And finally get to a point where we could get a deal done, and we got it done. Because look, and give the guy credit who owns the other 2. I mean, it's pretty well known, and we can say his name, Dave. Give Dave credit. He died on this hill. Yeah. And he was right. Like this card, the pop is so low. And now I know PSA didn't grade him for a lot of years, but the supply is so low in comparison to the 86 Fleer.
For sure.
I think that's what's really attractive for some of these high-end collectors, because if you look at for really high-end guys, this is kind of the key. There's over 320 PSA 10 86 Fleers.
That's right. So
they can get one whenever they want. There's no rare. There's no super rarity of the card. This card isn't the case, right? So I told him, look, if you're going to hold this for 5 to 10 years and you're going to pay this number, you're going to be just fine, in my opinion, right? I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not always right, but in my opinion, you will be just fine, overpaying for this card now if you're going to tuck it away for that long. And that's exactly what he's going to do. So you won't see this card for 5, 10 years, if not longer. But so, we really believe in that. I believe that, the Star card might fit the really high-end buyer in low pop, might fit their criteria a little bit more than it does the 86 Fleer. And that's why, I mean, even the 85s, there's 3 of them now, but there's only 3 9s, there's 3 85s, there's 25 or 26 8s. There's only about 30 cards graded 8 or higher of a true Michael Jordan rookie card. I thought you were coming around. I thought you were going to tell me that you think the Star is the true rookie now.
I'm not going to argue with you. The only the only risk, Jesse, would be if 12 graded over the next couple of years, and now there's 15 9. It's not likely, right? We've got a pretty good sample size of the crossing, and it's not a surprise. You've been in the game long enough, and I've lived in the PMG world long enough. It's usually a 1.5 to 2 point drop.
We tried to cross 2 BGS 9s for a client at the show, at the National, and they both came back and they said they would have been 7s. We didn't put them in 7 holders, but that gives you an idea. Like PSA grades, they grade cards harder than Beckett. That's typically a reality. We all kind of know that by now. Their grading standards are very, very tough. We can say they do a little pop control, right? They might not want to grade something, give somebody a giant check, which I think is good and bad. You'd like for them to just look at the card and not have any of the stuff, the subconscious stuff in the back of their head. But I'm sure that creeps in because they're humans. But yeah, it was an amazing sale, great card, happy to be a part of it. And like I said, the card's going to be tucked away for a long time. And I'm just glad that he was able to get his hands on one. And we did offer Dave $1 million. I did, from a different client personally, right after, and he said no. So his price went up after the sale.
I think they call that diamond hands.
Yes,
Jesse. That's what they call diamond hands.
Yeah.
And look,
diamond hands. Yeah.
I feel bad for Nat and PSA, man. They can't win for losing. No matter what they do, people bitch and complain.
They do.
If they give out 10s like it's candy, people complain. And they say, you're only giving out 10s because you want to upcharge us.
Yeah.
And then when they don't grade the cards the way you want them to grade it, you say they don't know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. It's like no matter what PSA does, they're not going to win. And I guess the bigger you get in the hobby, it's just the way it is, man, is that somebody's going to complain about it no matter what. And Fanatics should figure that out by now. They're doomed. No matter what they do, people are going to bitch and complain because that's what people in this hobby do. That's interesting. So one more card that I know you guys brokered, which I know is a monster because you posted it. Let me find it. Maybe I'm wrong. Did you not broker a Gretzky 10?
We did.
Okay, talk me through that one. That's a good Lord. That's a big card. That's 7 figures, right?
You're right there. Yeah. I've known this guy for a long time, and knew he had it. He came to me and just said, "Hey, I'm thinking about potentially moving this. Do you have a buyer?" And the high end hockey market's really, really thin. I mean, just to be honest. And so I had a guy in mind that likes the best of the best. He's not necessarily a hockey guy, but I reached out to him and asked him if he had any interest, and he did. And so we started talking about numbers and like long-term holds and, longevity of hockey and whatnot. And we both agreed that, because there's only 2 PSA 10s of the tops and 2 of the OPC, I mean, it's the Gretzky Grail, right?
Sure.
And the OPC is worth 2.5x, 2x what the tops is. And so we just decided that it was a good investment for him to make long-term. And so he ended up pulling the trigger. And now he has, one of the biggest hockey grails. So when that right buyer, and this is a guy that, does very well and doesn't need to sell.
Yeah.
So when that right buyer comes along, I know where the card is and I can call him and say, look, I have a buyer. It's the right guy. He's a high-end hockey guy. Here's the number today. And then I can see if we can get a deal done. So for us too, like, information about where cards are, information about who's looking for what, that's what we thrive off of, right? That's what we make a living on. So the longer we're in this, the more information we get. And honestly, the more deals we're going to be able to get done.
Well, Jesse, that's how you're building a foundation. It's almost like a real estate agent, right? You're building a client list, and everybody that buys a house is going to be a future seller, and it's the same thing for acquire. And you would not have been able to. I mean, you and Brock hit the ground, not just running, sprinting when y'all started acquire, and it's because of the history and the experience that you had when you were at PWCC before, and the hands that you shook, and the people you met, and the backs that you slapped all along the way, and the relationships you built. And so, I don't see that changing. I mean, every year just builds on the year before, and you guys are just starting to acquire. Let's see. Last question. Where do you see acquire in 5 years? Are you going to open up a Baton Rouge division? Yes or no?
Only if you can run it.
I'll run it right now. Hey, we can have this negotiation right now. I'm in real estate. You don't think I would leave real estate right now?
No, I see 5 years from now. I mean, with our website that we just launched, I mean, you saw the little thing that we put up on IG where it's a want list. It's what we have available. So now you're seeing a live picture of what's available. Yeah. We're also going to have live want lists on the site down the road. That's going to be iteration 2 or 3 on our website. Yeah. So that will come down the road. So if you come to our website and you have, let's just say first card, you have a 2004 Mega Cracks Messi PSA 10. Let's say you own one of those. Well, you'll see that on the want list on the website, and then you can reach out to us and say, I have one, and we can try to work a deal. So it's going to go both ways on the website. Down a couple years down the road, would it make sense for us to open a high-end auction? Maybe. Very niche high-end auction. Maybe. Obviously have a lot of experience with auctions.
For impatient sellers, for sellers who don't want to wait for you to go find a private buyer. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, hey, sometimes, look, we can't, if somebody brings us a card and say, we want to move this, we can't always find a buyer. I mean, that's just the reality. It's much easier to have a ready and willing buyer to find them a card than it is having a ready and willing seller and finding a buyer for that card. Unless it's, one of those specific cards that the buyer pool is so massive that we could go to a handful of different guys and potentially move it, right? So so let's just say that Gretzky 10, for example, let's say that we weren't able to find a buyer for it. And the guy's like, well, I really want to sell it. Well, if we had an auction platform where we did maybe a quarterly high-end auction or whatever it may be, then he would have a place to, if he wanted to sell through us, he could still, liquidate it there and sell it there. Sure. So it just gives a little bit more options. It doesn't let, money run away from us per se. If we had an auction, we always have a place for someone to get liquid. But it's still TBD. See if I want to tackle that beast. There's its own challenges that come with having an auction house.
Yeah, that's a whole nother animal.
It's a
That's
whole nother
animal.
animal. Yeah, this business we have right now, honestly, you know, I have 3 young kids. I have twin boys that are 8, a daughter that's 10. And the last 9 months, I've been able to be so much more present than when we were building this monstrosity that was PWCC.
Yeah.
So it's been a breath of fresh air, and that makes me just worry about starting something that's going to take up more demand and more of my time. Not that we're not already busy, but it is very flexible when it's just me and Brock and we get to call the shots. So the bigger this gets, the more I have to be cautious of, you know, now the home life. You know, the kids are at that age where they're a blast. They're so much fun. They're in so many sports, and missing those things isn't something I want to give up.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't miss anything. Like I'm not at every practice. I'm not that dad, but
no, me neither.
You know, I got to get them to the damn practice. You know, I'll sit in my car and I'll post Instagram reels instead of seeing on the sideline. Hey, why didn't you see that open man? Why didn't you pass that? You know, I'm not that guy. I was that guy in an earlier life, but now I'm the old dad who's been there and done that. And I'm like Phil Jackson sitting on the sidelines just laughing at these young parents. But you got a whole, it sounds like a long tenure of being the dad on the sidelines at your events. Don't miss any of that stuff ever. There is nothing better in the world than watching your kid, whether they dance or swim or play soccer, baseball, basketball, football, or whatever the hell they do up in Oregon, which is probably your kids probably do everything.
They almost play too many sports. It's going to be a lot
coming. Yeah. As a sports dad who's been there, done that. I got 2 girls playing Division I college soccer. I've had,
awesome, by the way.
a basketball player. Thank you. A basketball player, travel basketball player, travel soccer player, son. Yep. I've done it all, seen it all. I've made a million mistakes and I've done a million things right. And the one thing I would never change, there's nothing more fun than watching your kids play sports. Watching your kids do whatever it is that they love to do, whether it's sports or not. So if I could just get one of my damn kids to collect cards, I can't get it. I can't make it happen.
Really?
No.
We need to work on your sales skills, apparently.
I have no power of persuasion. You know why? Because, well, you don't know this yet. I forgot. Your boys are 8 and your girl's 10.
Yeah.
Well, what you don't know yet is you're an idiot. Like when they're 13, you'll soon realize how stupid you are. Yeah.
I can't wait. Sounds like a blast.
You'll be stupid from age 13 to about age 18. Then you'll be respected from about 18 to 25, and then you'll be revered after that. I think that's sort of the pathway, which I'm okay with. As long as you know it's coming, you can prepare for anything. So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, being a father is the greatest blessing in life. Okay, well that's it. So I'll take the job, I guess. Yes, we will open an acquire. We will have to put an E on the end, or maybe spell it AKWIRE or something for Louisiana people, because they won't be able to understand what we do. But that time's coming. Jesse, thanks for joining us. Again, easiest way to get in touch with you. You want me to just give your cell phone out on the YouTube channel?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people already have it. So
yeah, damn near everybody watching probably already has it. You were definitely my go-to at PWCC, and when you were no longer there, I was like, well, this is no good. Now what? But they figured it out. So
yeah, they have.
Best way to catch you is message you on Instagram at Jesse.
IG is the easiest thing, but or you can email us. Just first name JESSE at acquire.co. Same with Brock, BROCK at acquire.co. So it's simple to get a hold of us. We're very responsive. Anybody needs anything, even just general questions, we're happy to help people. We want to help build the space and build the community as well. So, just don't hesitate to reach out and be friendly.
Appreciate it, man. Well, look, thanks for joining the channel. The people that watch me know I'm pretty transparent and truthful. I don't really mess with people unless I, respect what they do and how they do it. And I mess with you and Brock all the time. So that is your endorsement from the Cajun Cardboard channel. I wouldn't have you on the channel if I didn't think very highly of both of y'all. So I truly appreciate you coming on the channel and sharing your time with us. And hopefully we can get some traction and put some buyers and sellers together and get you back on the channel a year from now and talk about Acquire and how much they've grown in the last year.
Let's do it. Thanks for having me on. It was a blast. And anytime you want to have me on, just let me know.
I appreciate it, Jess. Thanks, man.
You got it.
Okay.